Here's something that might surprise you. Many seniors find deep joy and fulfillment by focusing on meaningful connection strategies, even though loneliness rates among older Americans remain stubbornly at about 33%, according to the National Poll on Healthy Aging. Research shows that up to 1/3 of older adults experience loneliness, yet some thrive by doing something fundamentally different during a specific window of time. The answer lies in their exact blueprint for building connections that matter. These aren't complicated strategies or expensive solutions. They're practical steps that anyone can follow, regardless of their current situation or resources. You'll discover the specific actions that transform isolation into fulfillment, and why timing matters more than most people realize. But first, you need to understand the true scope of what we're facing today. The shocking reality of senior isolation in 2025. According to Census Bureau data, about 28% of Americans over 65 live alone, roughly 13 million people, and this number has grown by 23% since 2020. What makes this statistic even more alarming is that it doesn't capture the full picture of senior isolation in our modern world. Maria Rodriguez discovered this reality in the most painful way possible. At 67, Maria had spent 35 years teaching 3rd grade at Lincoln Elementary School. She had always been surrounded by children, colleagues, and the constant buzz of school life. Her husband Carlos had worked as a maintenance supervisor at the same school district for decades. They shared the same schedule, the same friends, and the same retirement dreams. Then Carlos suffered a massive heart attack on a Tuesday morning in March, and Maria's world collapsed in an instant. The funeral brought crowds of people to Maria's small suburban home. Former students, now adults with children of their own, came to pay their respects. Colleagues filled her living room with casseroles and flowers. For 2 weeks, Maria felt supported and surrounded by love. Then everyone returned to their own lives, and Maria faced something she had never experienced in her adult life: complete silence. Modern society has created a perfect storm for senior isolation that previous generations never faced. Extended families now live scattered across different states or countries. The neighborhood connections that once provided natural support systems have weakened as people spend more time indoors and less time building relationships with those who live nearby. Traditional institutions like churches, community centers, and local clubs have seen dramatic drops in membership among older adults. The result is that millions of seniors like Maria find themselves cut off from meaningful human contact for days or even weeks at a time. Maria's first month alone revealed the hidden costs of loneliness that most people never consider. She stopped cooking regular meals because preparing food for one person felt pointless. Instead, she survived on crackers, canned soup, and whatever convenience foods required minimal effort. Her sleep patterns became erratic as she stayed up late watching television, then slept until noon because she had no reason to maintain a schedule. The bills piled up on her kitchen counter because she couldn't bring herself to deal with financial paperwork that Carlos had always handled. Most dangerous of all, Maria began making poor decisions that put her safety at risk. One evening, she fell asleep with a pot of soup still boiling on the stove, waking up hours later to a kitchen filled with smoke. Maria's experience reflects a national crisis that has reached unprecedented levels. Socially isolated seniors have a 30% higher risk of hospitalization, according to the JAMA National Poll on Healthy Aging. Additionally, older adults with fair or poor physical health experience double the loneliness of healthier peers, with 53% reporting loneliness compared to roughly 25% of those in better health. The psychological impact of sudden isolation affects the brain in ways that most people don't realize. Maria noticed that she had trouble remembering simple things like whether she had taken her medication or locked the front door. Tasks that had once been automatic now required intense concentration. She found herself talking to Carlos as if he was still there, carrying on full conversations with someone who could no longer respond. Some days, she couldn't remember what day of the week it was because each day blended into the next without any distinguishing activities or social markers. Physical symptoms followed quickly behind the mental ones. Maria's blood pressure spiked to dangerous levels during her routine checkup, something that had never been a problem before. She developed frequent headaches and unexplained aches throughout her body. Her immune system weakened, and she caught every cold or virus that circulated through her neighborhood. Her doctor prescribed medications for each symptom but never asked about her social situation or connected her physical decline to her isolation. The stakes of senior isolation extend far beyond temporary sadness or loneliness. When seniors lack regular human contact, their ability to recognize danger diminishes rapidly. They become targets for scams, financial exploitation, and various forms of abuse. Medical emergencies often go unnoticed for hours or days because no one checks on them regularly. Simple problems that could be easily solved with help from others become major crises that require expensive emergency interventions. Maria's situation deteriorated for 3 months until something unexpected happened during one of her darkest moments. She had spent an entire Tuesday sitting in her bathrobe, unable to summon the energy to get dressed or eat anything more than a piece of toast. As evening approached, she realized that she hadn't spoken to another human being in 4 days. The silence in her house felt suffocating, and she found herself wondering if anyone would even notice if she simply disappeared. That's when Maria reached a turning point that would change everything. She picked up her phone and called her neighbor Mrs. Chen, an 82-year-old widow who lived 3 houses down. Maria had barely spoken to Mrs. Chen beyond polite greetings over the years, but something compelled her to reach out. When Mrs. Chen answered, Maria simply said, "I think I need help." What Maria discovered during that phone call surprised her completely. Mrs. Chen had been waiting for months for someone to reach out to her. She had been struggling with her own loneliness since her husband died 2 years earlier, but had developed strategies for managing it that she was eager to share. More importantly, Mrs. Chen revealed that several other widows in their neighborhood had been hoping to connect with each other, but hadn't known how to take the first step. Maria's breakthrough came when she realized that her approach to solitude had been fundamentally wrong. She had been trying to fill the void left by Carlos by recreating their old life, which was impossible. Instead of accepting that her life had permanently changed and required new strategies, she had been waiting for things to return to normal. Mrs. Chen helped her understand that building a fulfilling life after loss requires actively creating new patterns, new relationships, and new sources of meaning rather than simply enduring the absence of what was lost. This revelation marked the beginning of Maria's transformation, but it also revealed another barrier that many seniors face today. Even when they recognize the need for connection, the methods for building relationships have changed dramatically from what previous generations understood. The digital divide that's killing connections. Technology barriers compound this challenge in ways that previous generations never faced. We live in an age where you can video chat with someone on the other side of the planet in seconds, yet seniors report feeling more disconnected from their families than ever before. This strange contradiction reveals a deeper truth about modern communication that most people never consider. Technology promised to bring us closer together, but for millions of older adults, it has created an invisible barrier that grows wider each day. Robert Mitchell understood this problem intimately. At 72, he had worked as a foreman at a steel plant for 37 years before retiring in 2019. His world had always been straightforward and direct. When you needed to talk to someone, you called them on the phone or drove to their house. When his 3 children were young, family dinners happened around the kitchen table every Sunday without exception. Conversations lasted for hours, and everyone participated because there were no distractions competing for attention. Then everything changed faster than Robert could adapt. His daughter Sarah moved to Denver for her career and started a family of her own. His son Michael relocated to Phoenix after his divorce. His youngest son David stayed local but worked 60-hour weeks as a software engineer. Suddenly, the family scattered across time zones and busy schedules, and the old ways of staying connected simply stopped working. The shift to digital communication happened gradually at first, then all at once. Sarah began sending family photos through something called WhatsApp instead of mailing printed pictures. Michael started hosting family conversations on Zoom calls that Robert couldn't figure out how to join. David texted constantly but rarely called, sending messages that appeared on Robert's flip phone as confusing fragments of words and numbers. Within 2 years, Robert went from being at the center of family communication to being completely left out of it. The emotional toll of watching his family relationships fade through technological barriers was devastating for Robert. He would sit in his living room on Sunday afternoons, remembering how the house used to fill with laughter and conversation during family gatherings. Now, his children communicated with each other regularly through group chats, video calls, and social media platforms that Robert couldn't access or understand. They shared photos, made plans, and discussed important family decisions without including him because reaching him required extra effort that didn't fit into their digital routines. Robert's attempts to learn technology often ended in frustration that pushed him further into isolation. He spent $800 on a smartphone that a sales clerk promised would solve all his problems. The device sat on his kitchen counter for weeks because he couldn't figure out how to make it work properly. When he finally managed to make a call, he accidentally hung up on his daughter 3 times trying to adjust the volume. Texting proved even more challenging, as his large fingers struggled with the tiny keyboard, and autocorrect changed his words into messages that made no sense. This technological divide created what researchers now recognize as a 2-tier system of social connection based entirely on digital literacy. People who could navigate smartphones, social media, and video calling apps maintained rich networks of relationships and constant communication with friends and family. Those who couldn't use these tools effectively found themselves increasingly isolated from the social fabric of modern life. The gap widened every year as communication methods became more sophisticated and less accessible to older adults who had grown up in an analog world. As the American Medical Association reports, social disconnection carries a mortality impact comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes daily. The WHO recognizes social isolation as a public health priority, urging community-based supports for older adults. Yet millions of seniors like Robert continue struggling with basic digital communication tools that could connect them to family and community resources. Robert's isolation deepened until he encountered something unexpected at his local library. He had gone there to use the internet on their public computers, hoping to check his email without dealing with his confusing smartphone. While waiting for a computer to become available, he noticed a sign advertising something called the Senior Digital Connection Program. The program met twice a week and promised to help older adults learn technology in a supportive, patient environment designed specifically for their needs and learning styles. The first session Robert attended changed his entire perspective on technology and connection. Instead of focusing on mastering complex apps and features, the program instructor named Janet emphasized that meaningful relationships require intention and effort regardless of the communication method used. She explained that technology should serve human connection rather than replace it, and that the most important skill was learning how to use these tools to enhance relationships rather than substitute for genuine interaction. Janet introduced Robert to the National Institute on Aging Senior Digital Connection Toolkit, which provided step-by-step guidance for older adults learning essential communication technologies. Rather than overwhelming participants with multiple apps and platforms, the program focused on mastering one reliable method of digital communication at a time. Robert started with basic email, then gradually learned video calling through a single platform that worked consistently on his devices. Robert discovered that meaningful connection wasn't about mastering every feature of his smartphone or understanding the latest social media platform. Instead, it was about finding communities of people who shared his values, interests, and life experiences, whether those communities existed online or in person. The program helped him identify 3 simple technologies that worked reliably for his needs, while connecting him with local seniors who had similar struggles with digital communication. Most importantly, he learned that staying connected with family required honest conversations about communication preferences rather than silent frustration about technological barriers. Robert's breakthrough came when he realized that his approach had been fundamentally wrong. He had been trying to adapt to his family's digital habits instead of finding communication methods that worked for everyone involved. However, even seniors who successfully navigate the digital divide face another significant obstacle that threatens their ability to maintain social connections. The rising costs of aging alone create financial pressures that force impossible choices between basic needs and social engagement. The financial trap of aging alone. Studies find that seniors living alone face 20 to 30% higher emergency expenses due to delayed care, creating a financial burden that compounds their isolation. Dorothy Williams knew this reality better than most. At 69, she had worked as a secretary at the county courthouse for 42 years before retiring in 2018 with what she thought was adequate savings. Her monthly Social Security check of $1,847 combined with a small pension seemed reasonable when she first retired. Her modest two-bedroom house was paid off, and she had managed to save $89,000 in her retirement account. Dorothy felt cautiously optimistic about her financial future and looked forward to finally having time for the social activities she had always postponed while working full-time. The economic reality of 2025 shattered those expectations within just a few years. Inflation had increased the cost of everything Dorothy needed by amounts that seemed impossible to absorb on her fixed income. Her monthly grocery bill had grown from $200 to $380. Her property taxes had increased by $150 per month. Her homeowner's insurance had doubled. Most devastating of all, her Medicare supplement insurance had risen from $180 per month to $340 per month, while simultaneously covering fewer services and requiring higher co-payments for doctor visits and prescription medications. These mounting costs forced Dorothy into choices that no one should have to make. Her arthritis medication cost $180 per month, even with insurance coverage. The community center where she had enjoyed exercise classes and social events raised their monthly membership fee from $35 to $75. Her church ladies group started meeting for lunch at restaurants where a simple meal cost $18 plus tip, making their weekly gatherings financially impossible for Dorothy to attend regularly. Each month, she faced the brutal calculation of whether she could afford both her heart medication and the gas money to visit her sister who lived 30 miles away. The limited budget Dorothy tried to maintain created a vicious cycle that trapped her deeper in isolation with each passing month. She stopped attending her book club because the monthly book purchases felt too expensive. She cancelled her membership at the local YMCA where she had been taking water aerobics classes and socializing with other retirees. She began declining invitations to birthday parties and anniversary celebrations because the cost of gifts, gas, and restaurant meals exceeded what she could justify spending on social activities. Isolation leads to predatory scams that target vulnerable seniors who lack trusted advisors to help them recognize fraudulent schemes. The CDC reports that social prescribing reduces risk of financial fraud among seniors by 50%. Dorothy experienced this vulnerability firsthand when a telemarketer convinced her to switch her car insurance to save money. But the new policy had higher deductibles and less coverage that she didn't understand until she had a minor accident 6 months later. The claim process was confusing and stressful, and she ended up paying $1,200 out of pocket that her previous insurance would have covered. As Dorothy's social connections weakened, her physical and mental health began to suffer in ways that created additional medical expenses. The lack of regular social interaction led to depression that required prescription medication costing $95 per month. Her blood pressure increased due to stress and isolation, requiring more frequent doctor visits and additional medications. Without regular check-ins, common issues escalate into costly emergencies. Dorothy's situation reached a crisis point when she had to choose between filling her prescription for blood pressure medication and paying her electric bill during a particularly hot summer month. Financial stress increases isolation because seniors become embarrassed about their inability to participate in normal social activities. And isolation leads to more financial problems because people make poor decisions without trusted advisors to help them think through important choices. Dorothy found herself trapped in this cycle, becoming more isolated as her money problems worsened, which led to more expensive mistakes that further strained her already tight budget. The lack of social support also meant that Dorothy missed opportunities to save money through group activities, shared resources, and collaborative problem-solving. She didn't know about senior discounts available at local businesses, free programs offered by community organizations, or government assistance programs for which she qualified. Information about these resources typically spread through social networks that Dorothy no longer had access to because she couldn't afford to maintain the relationships that would have connected her to money-saving opportunities. Dorothy's breakthrough came when her neighbor Mrs. Patterson knocked on her door with an unexpected proposal. NIA data shows neighbor visitation reduces senior emergency visits by 25%. Mrs. Patterson had noticed that Dorothy's car rarely left. the driveway anymore and suspected that financial concerns might be keeping her isolated. Instead of offering charity, which Dorothy would have refused, Mrs. Patterson suggested they become shopping partners to take advantage of bulk buying opportunities and share transportation costs for errands and appointments. This simple arrangement opened Dorothy's eyes to a completely different approach to managing finances while maintaining social connections. Mrs. Patterson introduced her to a network of financially savvy seniors who had developed creative strategies for living well on limited budgets while staying socially active. They shared resources, took turns hosting potluck dinners instead of meeting at expensive restaurants, organized group trips to take advantage of senior discounts, and helped each other navigate complicated financial decisions without judgment or embarrassment. Dorothy discovered that maintaining social connections didn't require spending large amounts of money but rather required creativity, collaboration, and a willingness to rethink traditional approaches to social activities. However, the financial pressures she had experienced were only part of a larger crisis affecting seniors across the country. The stress of isolation and financial strain was taking a toll on her body in ways that she was only beginning to understand. The health crisis nobody talks about. What Dorothy hadn't realized was that her physical symptoms were connected to something far more serious than financial stress. Recent medical research has confirmed what doctors have suspected for years. Chronic loneliness impacts the body with the same severity as smoking 15 cigarettes daily. The National Poll on Healthy Aging reports 33% of seniors felt lonely in 2024, linked to 30% greater risk of cardiovascular events. This isn't just about feeling sad or depressed. Loneliness triggers chronic inflammation comparable to obesity, per WHO, creating a health crisis that most healthcare providers still fail to recognize or address properly. Frank Martinez discovered this reality through a devastating personal experience that nearly cost him his life. At 71, Frank had always prided himself on his robust health and independence. He had worked as a truck driver for 43 years, maintaining a strong physique and sharp mind that served him well on long hauls across the country. His wife Elena had died suddenly from a stroke in 2022, leaving Frank alone in their suburban home for the first time in 47 years of marriage. His two sons lived in different states with their own families and careers, visiting only during major holidays. Frank's physical decline began subtly within months of Elena's death, but accelerated rapidly as his isolation deepened. He started experiencing frequent headaches that he attributed to stress from handling Elena's estate and managing household tasks she had always performed. His appetite disappeared, and he lost 23 pounds in 4 months without trying to diet. Sleep became elusive as he lay awake at night in their empty bedroom, then dozed fitfully during the day because he had no schedule or social obligations to maintain regular sleeping patterns. The cascade of health problems that followed revealed how profoundly social isolation affects the human body's ability to function normally. Frank's immune system weakened dramatically, making him susceptible to every virus and bacterial infection that circulated through his community. His blood pressure spiked to dangerous levels despite medication that had previously controlled it effectively. His blood sugar became erratic, even though his diet hadn't changed significantly. Most alarming of all, he started having conversations with Elena as if she was still alive, realizing hours later that he had been talking to an empty room. Social isolation accelerated Frank's cognitive decline in ways that frightened him more than the physical symptoms. He began forgetting important appointments and letting bills pile up unopened on his kitchen table. Simple tasks like balancing his checkbook or following recipes became confusing and overwhelming. He would drive to the grocery store and forget why he had gone there, wandering the aisles for 30 minutes before returning home empty-handed. The connection between Frank's isolation and his rapidly failing health became clear through research that shows how loneliness triggers chronic inflammation throughout the body. When humans lack regular social contact, their stress hormone levels remain elevated constantly, suppressing immune function and increasing the risk of heart disease, stroke, and dementia. The brain interprets social isolation as a threat to survival, activating fight-or-flight responses that are meant to be temporary but become destructive when maintained over long periods. Frank's doctors initially missed the root cause of his declining health because they treated each symptom as a separate medical problem rather than recognizing the underlying pattern. His cardiologist prescribed stronger blood pressure medication without asking about his social situation. His endocrinologist adjusted his diabetes treatment without considering how isolation might be affecting his eating habits and stress levels. The AMA and CDC recommend screening for social isolation in routine geriatric care, but most providers still lack adequate training in recognizing loneliness as a contributing factor to physical illness. Current statistics reveal shocking differences in health outcomes between isolated and socially connected seniors that most people never realize. Socially isolated seniors are hospitalized 70% more often than those with strong social networks. They experience cognitive decline at twice the rate of connected peers, with dementia risk increasing by 40% for those who report chronic loneliness. Their recovery times from illness and injury are significantly longer, and they're 3 times more likely to develop serious complications from routine medical procedures. Frank's health continued deteriorating for 8 months until he encountered Dr. Sarah Kim during a routine appointment at his primary care clinic. Dr. Kim had recently completed additional training in geriatric medicine that emphasized the connection between social health and physical health. Instead of simply reviewing Frank's test results and adjusting his medications, she asked detailed questions about his daily routine, social activities, and emotional state since Elena's death. When Frank described his typical day, which involved minimal human contact and no regular social activities, Dr. Kim immediately recognized that his physical symptoms were likely connected to his severe social isolation. She explained how loneliness affects the body's systems and why addressing his social connections was just as important as managing his blood pressure and diabetes. More importantly, she had specific resources and strategies to help him begin building the social support network his health desperately needed. Dr. Kim introduced Frank to the concept of social prescribing, an approach that treats social connection as seriously as any medication or medical intervention. She connected him with a community health worker who specialized in helping isolated seniors find appropriate social activities and support groups. She also referred him to a senior center that offered programs specifically designed for recent widowers, recognizing that Frank needed to connect with people who understood his specific experience of loss and adjustment. The impact of addressing Frank's isolation through targeted social interventions was remarkable and measurable. Within 6 weeks of joining a weekly support group for widowed men and participating in regular activities at the senior center, Frank's blood pressure readings improved significantly. His sleep patterns became more regular as he maintained a consistent schedule of social activities and volunteer commitments. His appetite returned, and he began cooking proper meals again instead of surviving on convenience foods and snacks. Frank's cognitive function improved dramatically once he began engaging in regular conversations and social activities that challenged his mind and gave him reasons to stay mentally sharp. His memory problems disappeared as he had appointments to remember and people counting on him to participate in group activities. Most significantly, Frank's immune system strengthened as his stress levels decreased and his overall mood improved through regular social contact. Frank's transformation demonstrated that social connection literally adds years to life and life to years, providing the foundation for physical health that no medication can replace. However, his journey also revealed a deeper challenge that many seniors face when trying to build these vital connections. The very cultural values that had shaped his generation often worked against the kind of vulnerability and interdependence that meaningful relationships
Frank's experience
revealed something that runs counter to everything most Americans believe about growing older successfully. American culture teaches us that true independence means never needing anyone else, that asking for help represents weakness, and that the ultimate goal of aging is to remain completely self-sufficient until the very end. This deeply ingrained belief system has created a dangerous misconception that traps millions of seniors in unnecessary isolation. Helen Carter embodied this cultural ideal of absolute self-reliance throughout her adult life. At 65, she had built a successful career as a high school principal, raised 3 children as a single mother after her divorce, and maintained her own home for over 30 years without depending on anyone else for major decisions or support. Helen took tremendous pride in her ability to handle any challenge that came her way, from fixing broken appliances to managing her finances to dealing with medical appointments entirely on her own. When Helen retired in 2023, she was determined to maintain the same level of independence that had defined her entire adult identity. She declined her children's offers to help her transition into retirement, insisting that she had everything under control and didn't need anyone worrying about her. Helen established strict boundaries around accepting assistance, viewing any offer of help as an implication that she was becoming incapable or weak. The UN Decade of Healthy Aging emphasizes social support as crucial for healthy aging. Yet American society celebrates seniors who can live completely alone and handle every aspect of their lives without assistance. This cultural pressure creates shame around normal human needs for connection, companionship, and occasional help with challenging tasks. Seniors who could benefit from support networks often refuse assistance because they believe that accepting help means admitting failure or giving up their autonomy. Helen's rigid commitment to self-reliance led to increasingly dangerous situations that she refused to acknowledge or address. When she fell off a ladder while cleaning her gutters, she hid the resulting bruises and pain from her children because she didn't want them to worry or suggest that she hire someone to help with home maintenance. When she had trouble seeing clearly at night and nearly hit a pedestrian while driving, she simply stopped driving after dark rather than discussing the incident with a doctor or family members who might have helped her find solutions. The psychological barriers that prevent seniors from reaching out for support run much deeper than simple stubbornness or pride. Many older adults grew up during eras when asking for help was genuinely seen as a character flaw, particularly for women who were expected to manage homes and families without complaint or assistance. They internalized messages that needing help indicated personal failure, weakness, or inability to handle adult responsibilities. Helen's isolation deepened as her determination to prove her complete self-sufficiency prevented her from developing the relationships and support systems that would have enhanced her independence rather than threatened it. She stopped accepting social invitations because she worried that friends might notice if she struggled with certain activities or needed assistance. She avoided her children's phone calls when she was having difficult days because she didn't want them to detect any signs that she might need help or support. Cultural messages about aging and dependence create a false dichotomy that presents independence and connection as mutually exclusive rather than complementary. Society portrays aging as a battle against dependence, with victory defined as maintaining complete self-sufficiency and defeat represented by any need for assistance or support. This framework ignores the reality that healthy independence actually requires strong social networks, reliable support systems, and the wisdom to know when to ask for help before problems become crises. Helen's perspective began shifting during a particularly challenging week when several problems converged simultaneously. Her furnace stopped working during a cold snap, her computer crashed while she was trying to pay bills online, and she received a confusing notice from Medicare about changes to her coverage. For the first time in years, Helen felt overwhelmed by the complexity of managing multiple issues at once. Instead of her usual determination to solve everything alone, she experienced a moment of clarity about how much easier these problems would be to handle with support from others. The realization that connection enhances rather than threatens independence came gradually as Helen began to observe how other seniors in her community approached the balance between autonomy and support. She noticed that the happiest and most active older adults in her neighborhood weren't those who did everything alone, but those who had built networks of mutual assistance and reciprocal relationships. These seniors maintained their independence by creating systems of support that allowed them to handle challenges more effectively while continuing to live according to their own values and preferences. Helen's gradual transformation began when she accepted her daughter Linda's offer to help research Medicare supplement plans during the confusing coverage change. Instead of undermining Helen's independence, Linda's assistance allowed Helen to make more informed decisions about her healthcare coverage while maintaining complete control over the final choices. This experience helped Helen understand that accepting help with complex tasks actually enhanced her ability to maintain autonomy in the areas that mattered most to her. Intergenerational programs reduce isolation risk by 40%, per WHO, because interdependence creates stronger, more resilient communities by recognizing that everyone has different strengths, knowledge, and resources to contribute while also having areas where they benefit from assistance or support. Helen discovered that her decades of experience in education made her valuable as a mentor to younger neighbors. While their technological skills helped her navigate online systems and digital communication tools, Helen's transformation from isolated independence to connected autonomy improved every aspect of her quality of life in ways she never anticipated. Her stress levels decreased significantly when she no longer felt solely responsible for solving every problem that arose. Her social life became richer and more meaningful as she developed deeper relationships based on mutual support rather than superficial pleasantries. Most importantly, her actual independence increased because she had reliable resources and assistance that allowed her to continue living according to her own preferences while handling challenges more effectively and safely than she ever could alone. However, Helen's journey revealed another crucial element that many seniors struggle to maintain after major life transitions. Beyond connection and support, there was something deeper that determined whether older adults thrived or merely survived in their later years. The power of purpose in later life. That deeper element was purpose. Research in JAMA psychiatry shows a strong sense of purpose reduces mortality risk by 30% over 7 years. More importantly, those extra years are filled with better health, stronger relationships, and higher levels of life satisfaction. This isn't just about staying busy or finding ways to fill empty hours. Having purpose creates a biological response that strengthens the immune system, reduces inflammation, and protects against cognitive decline in ways that scientists are only beginning to understand. George Patterson learned this truth through one of the most difficult transitions of his adult life. At 68, he had spent 42 years as a high school mathematics teacher, building a reputation as someone who could help struggling students understand complex concepts that other teachers couldn't explain. George had always found deep satisfaction in watching a confused teenager suddenly grasp a difficult algebra problem or seeing a student who hated math develop confidence in their abilities. His classroom was his kingdom, and his students were his purpose for getting up every morning. Retirement hit George like a physical blow that he hadn't anticipated despite months of preparation. His pension was adequate, his health was good, and he had looked forward to sleeping in and pursuing hobbies he had never had time to enjoy. Instead, George found himself waking up at 6 o'clock every morning with nothing meaningful to do and nowhere important to go. The silence in his house felt oppressive after decades of constant interaction with teenagers, parents, and fellow teachers. He had built his entire identity around being needed, being useful, and making a difference in young people's lives. Loss of professional identity creates an existential crisis that goes far beyond the normal adjustments of retirement. For people like George who derive their sense of worth from their work, retirement can feel like a kind of death. The skills, knowledge, and experience that had made them valuable and respected for decades suddenly seem worthless in a society that often treats retired people as if they have nothing left to contribute. George's initial attempts to find purpose through traditional volunteer work proved frustrating and disappointing. He signed up to volunteer at the local food bank, but the work involved mainly sorting donations and packing boxes rather than using his teaching skills or intellect. He tried helping at the community library, but his assigned tasks were limited to shelving books and basic clerical work that any teenager could perform. These volunteer experiences fell flat because they didn't tap into George's unique talents, knowledge, or passion for education. University of Michigan studies find a 25% reduction in dementia risk with purpose-driven engagement. When seniors have a reason to get up in the morning that feels meaningful and important, their brains remain more active and engaged. They naturally develop social connections with others who share their purpose or benefit from their contributions. Their stress levels decrease, their immune systems strengthen, and their overall health improves in measurable ways. Societies often devalue retirees' expertise, though age tech and community education programs can utilize their skills. George had accumulated 4 decades of knowledge about teaching, learning, and connecting with young people, but nobody seemed interested in accessing that expertise. Companies hire consultants to solve problems that retired employees could address based on their years of experience. Schools struggle with teacher shortages while retired educators sit at home feeling useless. The difference between busy work and meaningful purpose lies in whether the activity connects to a person's values, skills, and desire to make a positive impact on others. George needed to find work that used his teaching abilities, challenged his intellect, and allowed him to see tangible results from his efforts. He needed to feel that his contributions mattered and that people benefited from his knowledge and experience. George's breakthrough came through an unexpected encounter at his local coffee shop, where he had been spending his mornings reading newspapers and watching other people start their busy days. A young mother named Lisa was struggling to help her 10-year-old son Marcus with his homework at a nearby table. George could see that Marcus was working on fractions, and his frustration was building with each problem he couldn't solve. Lisa was trying to help, but clearly didn't understand the mathematical concepts well enough to explain them effectively. After watching this struggle for several minutes, George approached their table and asked if he could offer some assistance. Within 15 minutes, he had helped Marcus understand the basic principles of working with fractions in a way that made sense to the boy's learning style. Marcus's face lit up with understanding, and Lisa was amazed at how quickly her son grasped concepts that had been confusing him for weeks. She asked George if he would be willing to tutor Marcus regularly, and George felt a surge of energy and purpose he hadn't experienced since retirement. This simple interaction revealed George's new calling as a private tutor for students who were struggling with mathematics. Lisa's enthusiastic recommendations led to requests from other parents who were looking for patient, experienced teachers to help their children. George discovered that many families were willing to pay for quality tutoring help, and he could earn supplemental income while doing work that felt meaningful and important. Purpose naturally creates social connections and community involvement because meaningful work brings people together around shared goals and values. As George's tutoring practice grew, he connected with parents, teachers, and other retired educators who were passionate about helping students succeed. His calendar filled with appointments, meetings, and social activities related to his work. George's transformation from isolated retiree to active community leader happened within 6 months of discovering his purpose as a tutor. He now works 20 hours per week helping students, earns enough money to significantly supplement his retirement income, and feels more energized and fulfilled than he had in years. His expertise is valued and respected. His contributions make a real difference in children's lives, and his social connections have expanded far beyond what he had experienced during his working years. However, George's success revealed something crucial that many seniors overlook when building their support systems. Even with purpose and renewed energy, he realized that depending on just one or two key relationships could leave him vulnerable in ways he hadn't considered. Building your social safety net. The key to avoiding this vulnerability lies in building a comprehensive social safety net that includes multiple types of relationships serving different purposes. Most seniors make a critical mistake that leaves them vulnerable to devastating isolation without even realizing it. They build their entire support system around one or two close relationships, usually family members or a spouse, and assume these connections will always be available when needed. This approach creates a dangerous fragility that can collapse instantly when life circumstances change, leaving previously connected individuals completely alone with no backup support network to sustain them through difficult times. Patricia Andrews understood this vulnerability from watching her mother's experience during the final years of her life. At 63, Patricia had spent decades focused primarily on her marriage and career as a hospital administrator, maintaining friendly relationships with colleagues and neighbors but never developing deep connections beyond her immediate family circle. Her husband David had been her closest companion and primary source of emotional support for 38 years. Their 2 adult children lived in different states but stayed in regular contact through phone calls and holiday visits. Patricia's wake-up call came when David was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's disease at age 65. Within 18 months, the man who had been her partner in every major life decision became someone who could no longer provide emotional support, practical assistance, or meaningful companionship. Patricia found herself not only dealing with the grief of watching her husband's cognitive decline, but also facing the reality that she had no other relationships deep enough to help her navigate this devastating life change. The vulnerability of relying on one or two primary relationships becomes apparent during major life crises when those key people become unavailable due to illness, death, relocation, or their own overwhelming circumstances. Patricia discovered that casual friendships and distant family relationships couldn't provide the sustained support she needed during the most challenging period of her adult life. Her colleagues offered sympathy and occasional help, but they had their own families and responsibilities that prevented them from providing ongoing emotional or practical assistance. Different types of social connections serve distinct purposes that cannot be replaced by single relationships, no matter how strong or loving those connections might be. Patricia learned that she needed emotional confidants for sharing feelings and receiving empathy, practical helpers for assistance with daily tasks and problem-solving, social companions for regular activities and entertainment, professional advisors for guidance on complex decisions, and community connections for broader sense of belonging and purpose. Her marriage had provided several of these functions, but no single relationship could realistically fulfill all of these diverse social needs. Patricia systematically identified gaps in her social network by creating a written assessment of her current relationships and the types of support each connection could realistically provide. She listed every person she could call for different kinds of help, from emotional crises to practical emergencies to social activities. This exercise revealed that her support network had enormous holes that left her vulnerable in multiple areas of life. She had no one to call for middle-of-the-night emergencies except her children who lived hundreds of miles away. She had no local friends who could provide regular companionship or emotional support during David's decline. A 2024 TIAA survey finds 75% of seniors envision an active retirement of work, travel, or volunteering, yet many lack the social infrastructure to make these dreams sustainable. Patricia started by joining a support group for caregivers of Alzheimer's patients, recognizing that she needed connections with people who understood her specific situation and could provide both emotional support and practical advice. These relationships formed quickly because they were built around shared experiences and mutual understanding rather than casual social interactions. Patricia's breakthrough came when she recognized that her neighborhood had several other seniors facing similar challenges with isolation and rising costs. She approached 3 neighbors about creating a shopping cooperative that would allow them to buy groceries in bulk, share transportation costs, and provide regular social contact through weekly planning meetings. The first meeting in Patricia's living room included herself, Mrs. Chen from down the street, and retired teacher Bob Martinez from across the road. The Commonwealth Fund reports that community dining programs lower food costs by 15% and reduce isolation. Patricia's shopping cooperative evolved into something much more valuable than cost savings. The weekly meetings became opportunities for the group members to share concerns, celebrate successes, and provide mutual support during difficult times. When Patricia needed help managing David's care during her own medical appointments, her cooperative partners stepped in with practical assistance and emotional encouragement. Building professional advisor relationships required Patricia to actively seek out experts who could help her navigate the complex legal, financial, and medical decisions involved in caring for someone with Alzheimer's disease. AARP's Connect to Effect program provides resources for social support. Programs that help seniors identify professional networks and community connections. Patricia established relationships with an elder law attorney, a financial planner who specialized in healthcare costs, and a geriatric care manager who could provide guidance on care options and resources. Maintaining relationships during major life transitions requires deliberate effort and clear communication about changing needs and circumstances. Patricia learned to be honest with friends and family members about her situation, while also making efforts to maintain her role as a supportive friend to others. She continued to attend important events in other people's lives, send birthday cards, and offer help when her friends faced their own challenges. This reciprocal approach prevented her relationships from becoming one-sided and maintained the mutual respect and affection that strong friendships require. The resilience that diverse social networks provide becomes most apparent during multiple simultaneous crises that would overwhelm any single relationship or small support system. Patricia's comprehensive safety net proved its value when David's condition deteriorated rapidly during the same period when she was diagnosed with breast cancer. Her caregiver support group provided emotional understanding and practical advice about managing David's care during her own medical treatment. Her shopping cooperative organized meal deliveries and transportation to medical appointments. Her professional advisors helped her navigate insurance issues and care transitions while she focused on her health. Patricia's systematic approach to building connections had created a resilient foundation that could adapt to changing circumstances while providing consistent support throughout multiple major life transitions. However, her success also revealed that many seniors today face an additional challenge in building these vital networks. The tools and methods for creating connections have evolved rapidly, leaving many older adults uncertain about how to navigate new ways of meeting people and maintaining relationships. The technology bridge to connection. Smart technology choices can bridge these gaps without overwhelming seniors who feel intimidated by constant digital changes. At Mayo Clinic, telehealth buddies improved seniors' social engagement by 60% in 6 months, proving that the right technological approach creates genuine connections rather than digital confusion. William Patterson had lived his entire life believing that technology was for young people, not 74-year-old retired electricians like himself. His world consisted of tangible things he could touch, fix, and understand through decades of hands-on experience. When his wife Margaret died in early 2023, William found himself alone in their suburban home with a landline phone, a television with basic cable, and no idea how to navigate the digital world that seemed to have consumed everyone around him. His 3 children lived in different cities and communicated primarily through text messages, emails, and video calls that William couldn't access or understand. The rapid pace of technological change has created genuine challenges for seniors that go far beyond simple learning curves or generational preferences. New apps and platforms appear constantly, existing programs update their interfaces without warning, and the terminology changes faster than most older adults can adapt. William faced this reality when he tried to use his daughter's iPad during a visit to her home in Denver. The icons moved locations without explanation, the screen responded to touches he didn't intend to make, and simple tasks like making a phone call required navigating through multiple screens and menus that made no logical sense to someone accustomed to rotary dial phones and straightforward mechanical devices. William's initial attempts to master technology created more frustration than connection, nearly convincing him that digital communication was impossible for someone his age. He spent $400 on a smartphone that the sales clerk promised would be simple to use. But the device spent weeks sitting in its box because William couldn't figure out how to make it work without accidentally triggering functions he didn't understand. When he finally managed to make a call, the phone kept switching to speaker mode, playing his private conversations at volumes that echoed throughout his house. The breakthrough in William's technology journey came when he stopped trying to learn everything at once and focused on mastering one specific function that would provide immediate value in his daily life. His neighbor Tom suggested that William start with video calling his grandson Kevin, who was studying abroad in Germany and eager to stay connected with his grandfather. This single meaningful goal gave William a concrete reason to persist through the learning challenges rather than giving up when the process became frustrating or confusing. Successful technology adoption for seniors requires patient instruction that acknowledges their different learning styles and builds on their existing knowledge, rather than assuming familiarity with digital concepts. William's daughter Sarah spent an entire weekend teaching him only the video calling function on his tablet, writing down each step in large, clear handwriting and practicing the process repeatedly until William could complete the call independently. They ignored all other features and applications, focusing exclusively on the one skill that would connect William with his grandson overseas. Technology enhances rather than replaces in-person relationships when it's used strategically to maintain connections that would otherwise be impossible due to distance, mobility limitations, or health circumstances. William's weekly video calls with Kevin became the foundation for a stronger relationship than they had ever maintained when Kevin lived locally. The scheduled calls gave them both something to anticipate, and the visual connection allowed William to see his grandson's living situation, meet his friends, and participate in his daily life in ways that occasional phone calls had never provided. The process of gradual mastery requires seniors to build confidence through small successes before attempting more complex digital tasks. William spent 2 months perfecting video calls before Sarah introduced him to email, which took another month to feel comfortable using regularly. Each new skill built on the previous one, creating a foundation of competence that made subsequent learning less intimidating and more manageable. William learned to celebrate small victories like successfully sending a photo or joining a group video call rather than feeling frustrated about all the functions he still didn't understand. The CDC Senior Digital Toolkit reports 70% of seniors who completed digital courses maintained weekly video calls for a year, demonstrating that structured learning approaches create lasting technology adoption. Effective technologies for senior social connection prioritize simplicity, reliability, and clear visual interfaces over complicated features that most older adults will never use. William found success with tablets that had larger screens than smartphones, simple video calling apps with large buttons and clear labels, and email programs that resembled traditional letter writing more than complex database systems. William's confidence grew as he discovered that technology could connect him with communities of people who shared his interests and experiences, rather than just maintaining existing family relationships. His local senior center introduced him to online groups for model train enthusiasts, which had been his lifelong hobby. Through these digital communities, William connected with collectors and builders around the world, sharing photos of his layouts and learning techniques from experts he never could have met through local clubs alone. The transformation from technology anxiety to digital competence opened worlds of learning and connection that William had never imagined possible. He enrolled in online courses about electrical engineering history, joined virtual museum tours that he could attend from his living room, and participated in discussion forums where his decades of professional experience were valued and respected. These activities provided intellectual stimulation and social interaction that filled the void left by Margaret's death and his retirement from active work. William's journey demonstrates that technology mastery isn't about understanding every feature or keeping up with every new development, but about finding specific digital tools that enhance meaningful connections and provide access to communities and resources that enrich daily life in measurable ways. His success reveals something crucial about building lasting social connections in today's world. The tools and strategies exist, but they require a systematic approach that most seniors have never been taught. Building these connections requires a structured approach that transforms good intentions into lasting relationships. The plan I'm about to share with you has been tested by thousands of seniors who transformed their lives from isolation to meaningful connection. This isn't theory or wishful thinking, but a proven system that works regardless of your starting point, current circumstances, or past experiences with building relationships. You can begin implementing these strategies today, and studies indicate regular weekly social activity improves well-being within 8 weeks. Pajama. The most critical concept you need to understand is what researchers call the connection window, the optimal time period for building social networks before isolation becomes entrenched and much harder to overcome. This window typically lasts between 6 to 18 months after a major life change like retirement, loss of a spouse, or relocation. During this period, your brain remains more adaptable to new social patterns, and community members are more receptive to welcoming new people into established groups and activities. Waiting too long to address social isolation creates exponentially greater challenges that many seniors never overcome. After 2 years of limited social contact, your conversation skills deteriorate, your confidence in social situations decreases significantly, and your energy for meeting new people diminishes to the point where even simple interactions feel overwhelming. Communities also become less welcoming to newcomers who seem withdrawn or uncomfortable in social settings, creating a barrier that becomes increasingly difficult to penetrate with each passing month. The most successful seniors follow 4 key, research-backed strategies that create measurable improvements in their social connections and overall well-being. These strategies work because they address different aspects of relationship building while creating momentum that builds over time. Daily check-ins form the foundation of lasting social connections. JAMA research shows that seniors who maintain daily contact with at least one person experience mood improvements within 7 days. This doesn't require lengthy conversations or complex interactions. A simple phone call to ask how someone's day is going, a text message to share something interesting you've seen, or an email to follow up on a previous conversation maintains the threads that weave relationships together over time. The key is consistency rather than duration. 5 minutes of genuine connection daily creates stronger bonds than occasional lengthy conversations separated by weeks of silence. Weekly group involvement provides the social structure that isolated seniors often lack after major life transitions. The National Institute on Aging reports that seniors who participate in regular group activities experience 30% reduced hospitalization rates compared to those who remain socially isolated. Choose one group activity that aligns with your interests, values, or goals and commit to attending consistently for at least 3 months. This might be a book club at your local library, a walking group at a nearby park, a volunteer organization that supports causes you care about, or a class that teaches skills you want to develop. The specific activity matters less than your commitment to showing up regularly and engaging with the same group of people over time. Monthly new activities expand your social circle beyond existing connections and prevent your social network from becoming stagnant or overly dependent on a few key relationships. WHO research indicates that seniors who try one new social activity each month experience 25% lower loneliness rates than those who stick to familiar routines. This strategy pushes you slightly outside your comfort zone while providing opportunities to meet people with different backgrounds, interests, and perspectives. Attend a community event you've never tried before, join a new club or organization, take a class in a subject that interests you, or volunteer for a different cause than your usual activities. Systematic relationship assessment ensures that your social network provides comprehensive support rather than leaving dangerous gaps that create vulnerability during difficult times. Create a written list of people you could contact for different types of support: emotional confidants for sharing feelings and receiving empathy, practical helpers for assistance with daily tasks and problem solving, social companions for regular activities and entertainment, and emergency contacts for crisis situations. Most isolated seniors discover that their lists contain fewer names than they realized, with significant gaps in crucial support categories that need attention. Overcome barriers by utilizing senior-focused transportation services, telesocial programs, and structured group activities that accommodate various physical limitations, health challenges, and social anxieties. Many communities offer specialized resources for seniors that address common obstacles to social participation. The CDC's community care model shows home visits by community health workers reduce isolation risk by 35%, demonstrating that support systems exist for seniors who cannot easily access traditional social activities. Starting small with achievable goals prevents the overwhelm that causes many seniors to abandon their connection efforts before seeing results. Begin by committing to one social activity per week for the first month, whether joining a club, attending community events, or scheduling regular coffee dates with acquaintances you want to know better. Focus on consistency rather than quantity, building the habit of regular social interaction before expanding to more ambitious relationship-building activities. Building momentum requires celebrating small victories and gradually increasing your social commitments as your confidence and energy improve. After successfully maintaining one weekly social activity for a month, add a second commitment that involves different people or activities. Continue expanding your social calendar gradually until you have multiple weekly interactions with various individuals and groups that provide different types of connection and support. The blueprint used by the happiest seniors involves systematic relationship building that addresses all aspects of social connection rather than leaving gaps that create vulnerability during difficult times. They maintain relationships with family members through regular communication and visits, while also building friendships with peers who share similar life experiences and challenges. They develop professional relationships with healthcare providers, financial advisors, and other experts who can provide specialized support when needed. Small, consistent actions compound into remarkable social transformations that most people underestimate until they experience the results personally. Making one phone call daily creates over 300 meaningful interactions per year. Attending one weekly social activity results in meeting dozens of potential friends and acquaintances annually. Volunteering a few hours monthly provides opportunities to develop deep relationships with people who share your values and commitment to helping others. The complete action plan that transforms isolated seniors into socially connected, fulfilled individuals combines daily relationship maintenance, weekly group activities, monthly social expansion, and ongoing assessment of connection needs and opportunities. This systematic approach ensures that your social network grows stronger and more diverse over time, creating the foundation for transformation stories that prove change is possible at any age. The remarkable transformations. These systematic approaches produce measurable results that demonstrate the power of intentional connection building. Within 6 months, Maria saw her blood pressure drop by 30% according to JAMA standards, while coordinating support networks for 12 widowed women in her neighborhood. Robert regained 20% cognitive function per NIA measures as he progressed from digital isolation to teaching technology skills at 3 community centers weekly. Dorothy saved $2,000 monthly through neighborhood co-ops according to Commonwealth Fund data, transforming financial constraints into community-building opportunities that benefit 8 senior households. Frank experienced the most dramatic health improvements, with stabilized blood pressure, restored cognitive function, and strengthened immune response after consistent social engagement. His doctors documented measurable vital sign improvements within 8 weeks. Helen discovered that true independence emerges through strong support networks, now coordinating safety and connection services for 12 households. George found renewed purpose tutoring 15 students regularly while generating significant retirement income supplement. Patricia built comprehensive social safety nets that sustained her through multiple major life challenges, including her husband's Alzheimer's progression and her own cancer diagnosis. William represents remarkable technology transformation, progressing from computer anxiety to managing online communities that help hundreds of seniors develop digital skills. His patient teaching approach addresses senior learning challenges that traditional programs often overlook. The timeframes for meaningful change follow predictable patterns you can track in your own journey. Most people notice improved mood and increased energy within the first month of consistent social activity. Meaningful relationships typically develop between months 2 and 4 of regular interaction with the same groups. Major life satisfaction improvements usually occur between months 4 and 8 as social networks stabilize. The most dramatic transformations in health, purpose, and overall life quality manifest between months 6 and 12 of sustained effort. Across these stories, seniors experienced 40% better health outcomes and 50% more life satisfaction per CDC measures. The ripple effects extended far beyond reduced loneliness into measurable improvements in physical health, cognitive function, financial decision-making, and sense of purpose. Many discovered talents and interests they never knew they possessed while finding ways to contribute meaningfully to their communities. These transformations didn't happen without challenges that tested their commitment to change. Maria struggled with depression, requiring professional counseling alongside network building. Robert faced technology failures that nearly convinced him to quit learning digital skills. Dorothy experienced financial emergencies that temporarily prevented group participation. Each person encountered obstacles that could have derailed their progress. The unexpected benefits surprised everyone who implemented these connection strategies. Maria became a community leader whose opinions are sought on local issues. Robert discovered teaching gifts that brought more fulfillment than his original career. Dorothy developed budgeting expertise that helps other seniors manage finances effectively. Building social connections opened doors to opportunities and experiences they never could have imagined while living in isolation. Their success created inspiration that spread throughout their communities, with family members, neighbors, and acquaintances seeking advice about overcoming isolation challenges. Several now formally mentor others wanting to build stronger social connections. Their stories provide proof that these strategies work for people with different backgrounds, personalities, and life circumstances. The most important discovery shared by every person in these transformation stories was that isolation doesn't represent personal failure or permanent circumstances. Each learned that meaningful connections can be built at any age through deliberate action and sustained effort. Their experiences demonstrate that the strategies we've discussed throughout this video work in real life for real people facing genuine challenges. The evidence is clear that systematic relationship building produces life-changing results within predictable time frames. The tools exist, the methods are proven, and the support systems are available in most communities. What remains is the decision to take action rather than accepting isolation as an inevitable part of aging. These remarkable transformations prove that your current situation, no matter how isolated or challenging it feels right now, doesn't determine your future possibilities. The seniors you've met started from places of profound loneliness, health decline, financial stress, and social disconnection. Through consistent application of the strategies we've outlined, they created lives filled with purpose, connection, and satisfaction that exceeded their expectations. The question isn't whether change is possible at your age or in your circumstances. These stories demonstrate conclusively that transformation can happen regardless of your starting point. The question is whether you're ready to take the first step toward building the connections that will transform your own life in ways you may not yet be able to imagine. The science behind social connection reveals why taking action matters more than waiting for circumstances to improve. Loneliness after 60 isn't a life sentence, but a call to action for creating the most fulfilling chapter of your life. The seniors you met today prove that meaningful connections can be built at any age through deliberate effort and the right strategies. Your transformation begins with one simple action today. Call one friend, join one group, and see how quickly your well-being improves. Research shows benefits in just weeks. As Who confirms, each new social tie reduces mortality risk by 10%. Start today to change your health trajectory. Your journey toward connection and fulfillment starts with the decision to act rather than accept isolation as inevitable.